Hello everybody, welcome to the ePathshala course on intellectual property rights. We are going to discuss the module on TRIPS agreement and its relationship with public health, also certain challenges dealing with access for medicines. The outline of this course is briefly summarized here. We will primarily discuss the nature of pharmaceutical industry and markets and what role intellectual property rights play in pharmaceutical innovation. We will also try and see why TRIPS agreement is important and the role of TRIPS agreement and the framework of developing countries or the role of developing countries in implementing the TRIPS agreement. We will discuss certain provisions on patents and public health. These primarily relate to the chapter in TRIPS agreement that has to deal with specific provisions on patent law that member countries are requested to implement. We will discuss the test and regulatory data protection that is required under article 39.3 of the TRIPS agreement and what this protection actually entails. We will also discuss, taking into account the Indian context, the unique features of Indian law both in terms of section 3D, which is one of the most controversial sections that is debated in the context of TRIPS implementation, and also India's recent grant of a compulsory license and the ground that is usually quoted as being controversial based on the ground of local working. Finally, we will conclude with a summary so that we summarize on the important points that are made in this course. So, if you understand the pharmaceutical industry, it is a high risk business model. The risk of failure is larger than the risk of success. So, 1 in 10,000 modules make it to the market finally. So, IP dependency in case of pharmaceutical innovation is largely affirmed through various market surveys by Taylor and Silberstein, Cohen, Mansfield and others who have done multi-stakeholder surveys to find out the importance or the relevance of patent protection in the pharmaceutical industry. So, this particular surveys affirm the role or the positive role of patents in case of pharmaceutical industry. However, the figures that are usually cited by the pharmaceutical industry have been rather controversial, and these have been regularly disputed by various civil society movements and also academics, saying that the investment figures are actually exaggerated by pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical innovation is quite distinct from other forms of innovation in that pharmaceutical innovation is largely linear from the lowest common denominator of actually basic and applied research till it reaches the point of production and subsequent marketing. So, primarily one or few of those companies may be involved from the first point till the last point it reaches the end consumers. However, this may be different in case of software industry where innovation is both sequential and complementary. The average profits in pharmaceutical industry are much higher than the average profits in other industries. This has been confirmed by various magazines like the Forbes and others who have rated pharmaceutical industries as among the top profit making industries in the world. However, pharmaceutical industry faces higher governmental or regulatory control. So, such forms of control may be exercised through controlling prices or certain kind of reimbursement schemes, insurance companies and certain kind of limitations on marketing and promotion, or these restrictions are specifically invoked because pharmaceutical involve a lot of ethical drug marketing, or in situations where we know that the doctor chooses and the consumer pays. Pharmaceutical markets also are known to have less price competition. So, the highest selling brand may also be the most priced one, unlike in case of other products where due to competition people may choose lower price products. In case of pharmaceutical, the higher price product may be preferred by consumers due to its unique nature. There is also some kind of huge controversy involving price discrimination by patent owners in developing countries, because the income levels between developed and developing countries are disparate. That's the reason why global price discrimination is something that people involving access to medicines have called for. However, pharmaceutical companies may be wary of price discrimination, barring minor exceptions. As I mentioned earlier, pharmaceutical markets are unique also because we deal with ethical drugs, in the sense that these drugs are usually prescribed by the doctors and consumers have very less choice in choosing them. There are certain innovation issues involving pharmaceutical industry. They primarily have to deal with the decline of new chemical entities innovation. There have been studies which show that there have been drastic decline in terms of pharmaceutical industries coming up with new chemical entities. The pharmaceutical landscape in terms of broader innovation is also changing from chemical based invention to new molecular invention involving biodrugs and biotechnology, where technology is the dominant driver. Certain cases of innovation involving neglected drugs and orphan drugs may also not be easily generated through the patent based system. So primarily neglected disease that have to deal with the developing or the least developed countries may not be produced by the pharmaceutical companies for want of better markets, and certain kinds of drugs that treat rare diseases may also not be produced by virtue of the patent system. So why TRIPS? If you look into the origins of the TRIPS agreement, the role of pharmaceutical industries in actually recommending the USTR to initiate dialogue on TRIPS during the Uruguay round is pretty much clear. So these companies were not just involved in lobbying with their respective governments, but they are also known to have lobbied with different industry organizations abroad, including the European Community and Japan, and then finally asking their support to see that the TRIPS agreement goes through the Uruguay round. So pharmaceutical companies naturally had a predominant role. But having said that, there was also kind of a perception that the Paris Convention was pretty much insufficient in providing international protection. So the Paris Convention, as you might have seen from the previous modules, basically had to deal with principles of national treatment, where a domestic inventor or a IP holder vis-a-vis a foreign IP holder is treated or provided same treatment, which finally becomes no less favorable treatment in case of TRIPS agreement. The priority period involving filing of intellectual property application is provided as 12 months, and the principle of independence of patents. It means a WTO member country or a Paris Union member country shall not deny patents primarily because any other country has denied protection. So basically you will have to deal with grant or denial based on the domestic laws and not by relying on other laws. That cannot be a reasonable ground for denying patents. However, TRIPS is Paris plus, in the sense that it goes far beyond the requirements of the Paris Convention, and naturally, because TRIPS agreement was trying to remedy the deficiency in the Paris Convention. Importantly, unlike the TRIPS agreement, which requires that legal effect must be given to the provisions of the TRIPS agreement, the Paris Convention did not say so in so many words. It means Paris Convention did not require member countries to come out with a patent law where they had none. So this is one of the important distinctions between Paris and TRIPS. However, in case of pharmaceuticals, it was a different game changer, because the patent provisions in the TRIPS agreement largely define what subject matter has to be protected or what subject matter can get excluded. TRIPS agreement also defines the rights, which were missing completely in the Paris Convention. It also defines the limited exceptions and certain conditions on use without authorization. The term of protection is specified in the TRIPS agreement. also the terms relating to revocation. However, no grounds have been specified on revocation. TRIPS agreement also requires that certain conditions have to be followed in case of, or may be followed in case of, disclosure requirement involving patents. However, TRIPS was important in the sense that TRIPS linked the provisions of its agreement with the dispute settlement mechanism, and hence any countries who does not implement the TRIPS agreement within its own legal system, that particular country can be taken to the WTO and the dispute settlement process can be invoked. Importantly, TRIPS agreement as a document also uses the language of balance. If you look into the preamble, which talks about balance between protection and enforcement, if you look into Article 7, which talks about balance of rights and obligation, if you look into Article 8, which allows public interest measures to be adopted by WTO member countries, we can fairly say that TRIPS allows certain kinds of flexibilities to be used by WTO member countries. At the same time, these flexibilities are sometimes explicit, as in case of a compulsory license which can be granted on any ground, or in case of certain limited exceptions that may be provided, and also sometimes these are non-explicit, where you can interpret certain provisions to provide you certain kind of a maneuvering space within your domestic policy context. TRIPS also allows countries to have freedom to determine the principles of exhaustion of intellectual property rights, either being national exhaustion or international exhaustion. TRIPS also has come out with what is called as August 2003 decision post the Doha Declaration on Public Health, wherein specifically a compulsory license meant for export purposes can be granted. It was primarily to avoid or to remedy the legal impediment created by the existing provisions of the TRIPS agreement, wherein a compulsory license could be granted only predominantly for the purpose of supply of the domestic market. So this kind of created legal barriers for export through a compulsory license, but it was finally remedied through the paragraph 6 mechanism and the August 2003 decision of the TRIPS agreement. There are different transition periods involving developing countries, developed countries and least developed countries. Primarily those countries which did not have a product patent regime at the time of signing of the TRIPS agreement were allowed a 10-year transition period. Furthermore, transition period for implementation of the TRIPS agreement for least developed countries has been extended to 2021, and hence the least developed countries need not implement the TRIPS agreement provided they provide national treatment and most favored nation treatment, and they also need not provide product patent for pharmaceuticals and agrochemicals. Finally, TRIPS agreement is not the all and end all of international intellectual property. Post TRIPS, there have been many attempts to ratchet up the international norm setting and standards relating to intellectual property protection through agreements like ACTA, anti-counterfeiting trade agreements, and certain other forms of plurilateral agreements like the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, and also investment treaties or bilateral investment treaties. So a combination of these may lead to, and if countries are party to such treaties, it may lead to enhanced protection, international protection for intellectual property owners. So what are the provisions relating to patents in public health? TRIPS agreement does not define what a patent actually is. However, it is generally understood that it protects certain kinds of rights in relation to a new invention. TRIPS agreement, however, defines the patentability criteria in terms of novelty, inventive step, and industrial application. Again, these terms are not clearly defined. One of the first requirements under TRIPS agreement in Article 27.1, which deals with subject matter, is that patent shall be granted on any invention. What it means to be an invention is not defined under the law, under the TRIPS agreement, but it is generally understood as a new solution to a technical problem. So members may generally exclude inventions based on abstractness of the invention, or if the invention relates to a scientific theory or products of nature, etc., or mental steps, pure mental steps. These may be excluded, but there is ample controversy as to how invention is perceived and understood by different WTO member countries. Second, novelty is one of the important requirements under TRIPS agreement. Again, TRIPS does not define what standard of novelty should WTO member countries follow, whether novelty should be global or local, in the sense that if you judge prior art for the purposes of an invention, whether the prior art should be located within the territory of your country or whether it should be located internationally is not resolved by the TRIPS agreement. Furthermore, how these prior art has to be evaluated and what this prior art actually means has not been discussed. So it gives enough leeway for WTO member countries to actually look into different mechanisms to evaluate prior art. So in the context of patent law, novelty would mean that you are determining and trying to compare both prior publication and prior use in terms of the new invention and how the new invention actually reversely infringes on the existing pieces of publication or prior use. However, combination of prior art cannot be used generally as hitting novelty. The other criteria involving TRIPS agreement is the criteria of inventive step. Again, TRIPS agreement does not define how this criteria has to be understood and evaluated. Different countries have followed different mechanisms, and what you try and basically do in inventive step is to find out what are the steps taken by the inventor or the patent applicant to define the problem and to define the solution, and the steps taken from the problem and how the solution has been achieved. So these steps in themselves must be inventive. So basically inventive step has to generally deal with steps taken to reach a problem, from a problem to a solution. Primarily they involve technical advance. Secondarily, they may involve other circumstances like commercial success of the product. In a recent case, in a case involving KSR versus Teleflex decided by the United States Supreme Court, it is pretty much clear that WTO member countries have certain leeway or policy space to maneuver around the degree of inventive step that may be required. Finally, industrial application or usefulness or the criteria of utility again remains undefined, but as generally understood by WTO member countries, this does not require commercial utility per se. However, the particular product or a process must have some kind of industrial application, in the sense that it can be applied in any particular industry, including agriculture. Now, this one of those cases, early cases decided in the UK, wherein an invention that related to perpetual motion machine was rejected by the patent office for lack of utility or industrial application, because this perpetual motion machine and the idea of it ran contrary to the principles of thermodynamics. Article 27.1 also states that patent rights shall be available and enjoyable without discrimination as to the place of invention, the field of technology, and whether the products are imported or locally produced. These three kinds of requirements and the criteria of discrimination pertaining to them are very unique in international patent scheme, in the sense that WTO member countries do not have the freedom to reject patents or to grant or not to grant the subject matter involving patents based on the criteria of place of invention, and also there can be no discrimination between field of technology. For example, WTO member countries cannot decide that they would exclude mechanical inventions or biotechnology inventions as a class per se. So exclusion of a class of inventions may be hit by the criteria of discrimination in the field of technology. Furthermore, you cannot also discriminate patents and grant of patents based on the condition whether the product has been imported or locally produced. So in this context, it is important to question whether lack of local working, as in the sense of local manufacturing, can be an important ground for compulsory license. However, this has not been settled. Brazil had unique provisions in its patent law which allowed it to grant a compulsory license for not locally working the invention, as in not locally manufacturing the invention. US took Brazil to the WTO dispute settlement. However, they mutually compromised, and Brazil agreed as part of the compromise that it would not use such provisions without consulting the United States prior to use of these mechanisms. This becomes crucial because India has similar provisions, and India has in the recent past invoked such a ground for the grant of a compulsory license involving Bayer's product Nexavar. We will discuss this in the next few slides. Article 27.2 allows member countries to exclude patents or exclude subject matter on the grounds of ordre public or morality. Now, how do you define ordre public or morality is not clear from the provision in itself. Member countries may also exclude patents apart from ordre public and morality on the ground that it may seriously prejudice plant, animal or human life. However, such exclusion should not be based purely on the very nature of the invention itself, but must be based on the effects resulting from commercial exploitation of the invention. For example, cloning may be an area where patents may be denied, anyway, because anyway human cloning may be banned by virtue of an external regulation. In such cases where there is already an external regulation, probably that would be a fit case where patents may be denied for on the grounds of ordre public and morality, or that it causes serious prejudice to plant, animal or human life and environment. Members may also exclude certain methods of treatment. These are specifically provided in the TRIPS agreement. Article 27.3a deals with them. They are diagnostic, therapeutic, surgical methods meant for the treatment of human and animals. Kindly note that these patents or exclusion are only with reference to methods patent, and they do not related to, they are not related to products. So, surgical products, diagnostic products or therapeutic products may all be protected under patent law. These exclusions pertain to methods only in the sense that patenting such methods may be inherently seen as unethical, or sometimes countries may also argue that such exclusion is based on the fact that these methods may lack industrial application. However, there are countries which grant patents on methods of treatment. For example, the US does not make any distinction between methods and products and grants patents on all these kinds of inventions. And finally, what they have done is that they have limited the liability with respect to infringement by doctors. Ultimately, the end result is, even if these are provided under their patent law, the remedy is limited in nature. The US exclusion or remedies in case, limitation on remedies in case of methods treatment or methods of treatment arose due to a case called as the Palin case, and this law was subsequently amended, the patent law was amended to include such a principle that it should not be an infringement of the patent if there is a medical activity involved by physicians, etc. Other patent exclusions may relate to essentially biological processes, may exclude plants, animals directly. However, TRIPS agreement requires protection for microorganisms and non-biological or microbiological processes. The important question in this regard, especially in the context of biopharmaceuticals, is whether gene patents are included within the definition or excluded within the definition. In a recent Supreme Court decision in the United States involving ACLU versus Myriad Genetics, decided in 2013, the US Supreme Court has come to a conclusion that human genes are not patentable. The primary argument seems to be based on the ground that the information content in the gene prior to its isolation and post its isolation remains the same, and that is why, since the character of information does not change, they are rather products of nature. There is also currently a review going on with reference to article 27.3, and this is mentioned in article 27.3b, wherein WTO Secretariat has compiled a lot of information involving how patent protection is offered in case of plants, animals, and how effective sui generis system for plant is provided. It is important to note in this context that this kind of exercise is done because there was quite a lot of controversy at the time of signing of the TRIPS agreement, because based on this article 3.3 and the fact that microorganisms and some non-biological processes and microbiological processes have to be mandatorily protected, countries demanded that this particular implementation has to be reviewed. We will also look into a bit of disclosure. Disclosure is one of the important functions of the patent system. It is a quid pro quo in the sense that patent holder is given a limited market exclusivity based on the fact that he discloses his invention to the society. TRIPS agreement requires that this disclosure shall be in the best mode possible as on the date when the patent application is made, and also that the invention must be able to be performed by any ordinary person having reasonable skill in the art post the expiration of the patent. As mentioned earlier, TRIPS agreement went ahead in defining the rights of the patent holders in terms of defining the patent rights like making, using, selling, importation, offering for sale. However, in case of process patents, there is a reversal of burden of proof that is required by TRIPS agreement. This is very important because most pharmaceutical processes or any other type of processes are inherently tacit knowledge. So it will be very onerous on the part of the patent holder to prove that such a particular process has been actually infringed by the defendant. Hence, the burden is on the defendant to show that he has actually not infringed a process patent. In case of revocation, TRIPS does not mention any ground for revocation. So countries have ample flexibility to revoke patents on any ground that they want. However, most countries have gone ahead in revoking patents based on the ground that it does not qualify valid subject matter, that it does not qualify the disclosure requirement, it does not qualify the patentability requirements, like novelty, utility and inventive step. Also, India, for example, has gone ahead and said that patents may also be excluded on the grounds of public health or public interest. The term of protection provided under the TRIPS agreement is 20 years. This is provided by article 33, and it has been quite controversial whether 20 years is the actual time period that pharmaceutical companies may actually be able to recover its investment, but TRIPS does not settle this issue. TRIPS only provides a minimum kind of standard. It means members can also provide more extensive protection than that is provided in the TRIPS agreement. Certain limited exceptions have been provided under the TRIPS agreement. Article 30 talks about the 3-step test, that it must be limited, must not unreasonably prejudice or conflict with the normal exploitation of the patent, and must not unreasonably prejudice the legitimate interest of the right holder, taking into account interest of the third parties. These 3 steps came to be interpreted in a WTO dispute involving Canada Pharmaceuticals. In the Canada Pharmaceuticals case, the Canadian patent law had 2 exceptions. One is what is popularly called as the stockpiling exception, and second is what is called as the regulatory review exception. The stockpiling exception allowed generic companies to stockpile by making the particular drug prior to 6 months from the date of expiry of the patent, and the regulatory review exception allowed generic companies to actually infringe on the patent in cases where the generic companies were required to be in compliance for safety and regulatory procedures for getting a marketing approval. In case of the stockpiling exception, the WTO dispute settlement came to a conclusion that the stockpiling exception was not limited in nature, and that is why it was struck down as a violation of article 30 of the TRIPS agreement. It did not go further in determining the other 2 prongs of the 3-step test. In case of the regulatory review exception, the WTO dispute settlement came to a conclusion due to the nature of the requirement itself, in that the law made this exception because there was an external regulation which required certain compliance from generic companies. So wherever there was a compliance required, the patent law, having provided certain specific exclusion, may be considered as a valid exception. This is usually called as the regulatory review exception or the Bolar exception. Article 31 provides other uses without authorization. While in case of Article 30, the uses may be free as such, in case of Article 31, the use must be compensated. However, Article 31, unlike Article 30, does not have any kind of a limitation as provided by the 3-step test. In Article 31, there are certain conditions that need to be followed. However, Article 31 does not mention the grounds on which such use without authorization may be granted. For example, a compulsory license, which is a form of an involuntary contract when enforced by the government, is granted. Such a compulsory license has to comply with certain conditions, but a compulsory license may be granted in any field and may also be granted on any ground. However, compensation is an important requirement, and TRIPS Article 31 requires that this compensation shall be in the form of an adequate remuneration. Article 31 also can be used to grant a compulsory license in case of violation of competition law. However, such practices which are declared as anti-competitive and for which a remedy is a compulsory license, such cases shall be determined by judicial courts. There is also certain procedural requirement and compliance that needs to be done in case of the TRIPS agreement, specifically where the patent holder has to be contacted and a voluntary license has to be sought from the patent holder prior to any third party approaching for a compulsory license. And only after failure to get the voluntary license for a sufficient reasonable period of time can any third party approach the government for a compulsory license. Furthermore, such a procedure may be avoided in case of certain emergencies like national emergency, circumstances of extreme emergency, or public non-commercial use. Article 31 also requires, specifically Article 31F, that whenever a compulsory license is granted, it shall be predominantly for the purpose of supply of domestic markets. Hence, there was a legal problem prior to the Doha Declaration on Public Health. Doha Declaration post the AIDS crisis in South Africa specifically said that WTO member countries have the freedom to determine the grounds for compulsory license and to determine the public health crisis. Paragraph 6 of the Doha Declaration also said that the WTO must find out an expeditious solution to overcome the problem raised by Article 31F, wherein a compulsory license may not be granted for the export purposes only. The problem encountered prior to the amendment of Article 31F was that WTO member countries could not export its pharmaceutical products by way of a compulsory license exclusively for those countries which had no manufacturing or insufficient manufacturing capacities. That seems to be resolved reasonably by virtue of August 2003 decision of the WTO and subsequent amendment to Article 31 by way of Article 31 bis. However, there are important conditions attached as to how this mechanism should function. One of the important conditions is that a request must be made by way of a notification at the TRIPS Council by the member country which is wanting to import. A subsequent notification has to be done by the exporting countries, and furthermore, in both those jurisdictions, depending on the status of the patent law, a compulsory license has to be granted. And once the production starts and the export starts, there are certain requirements relating to how the product must be packed distinctly and how the product must be exported so that there is no diversion into domestic market or other foreign markets. So this primarily resolves the legal ambiguity created by Article 31F, wherein compulsory license were primarily meant for supply of, or predominantly for the supply of, domestic market only. With Article 31F amendment, WTO member countries, based on the conditions prescribed, can export, and compulsory license can be issued specifically for the purposes of export. Finally, to test data protection, Article 39.3 requires that members, as a condition of protecting or of approving marketing of pharmaceutical or agricultural chemical products which involve new chemical entities, they shall protect the data against unfair commercial use. Now, this requirement has bearing in the principles of unfair competition, as mentioned in Article 10 bis of the Paris Convention, wherein if there are certain practices that are contrary to honest commercial trade practices, such practices shall be avoided or regulated through the law of unfair competition. Article 39 specifically requires the WTO members shall protect confidential information by way of some form of protection against misappropriation of such information. Furthermore, Article 39.3 specifically lays down the standard for unfair commercial use of test and other regulatory data. However, what this unfair commercial use means has not been clearly defined. Some countries say that this creates an obligation for data exclusivity. However, no WTO dispute settlement panel has ever ruled on this issue. India, for example, follows the principle of permissive reliance, wherein a subsequent generic approval may be granted by the Drugs Controller General or the Federal Drug Regulatory Authority by relying on the data submitted by the originator, and this shall be considered as permissive reliance. Furthermore, in the Indian context, India is very unique in the pharmaceutical arena because India's pharmaceutical policy has consistently tried to demonstrate its concerns for global access to medicines and also its economic interest involved in generating and nourishing a strong generic industry. It is also called as the pharmacy of the world in the sense that India is one of the largest exporters of generic pharmaceutical products in the world. It is 4th in terms of volume and 13th in terms of value. It is also important to note, considering that there is a background of pharmaceutical industry and India's concerns for access to medicines, India led the Uruguay round by specifically requesting other negotiating partners to agree on compulsory licenses. Specifically, Article 31 was negotiated by India along with the support of other WTO member countries. So, India has subsequently sought implementation of the TRIPS agreement in a phased manner. So, India required to implement all the provisions of the TRIPS agreement in a 5 years duration because it was a developing country in transition. Specifically, in the case of product patents for pharmaceuticals and agrochemicals, India was granted a 10-year transition period. Of course, it was at the option of countries whether to have the transition period or not. For example, Brazil is one country which did not opt for a transition period and it straight away went on implementing the requirements of the TRIPS agreement. But since India sought a transition period, the product patent regime for pharmaceuticals kicked off only in the year 2005. So, the 2005 amendment to the Indian patent law is kind of critical in understanding how India is trying to manage its access regime for pharmaceuticals. It is important to note that because of such kind of unique provisions, Indian law has been constantly criticized and evaluated by other comparative jurisdictions, primarily by the United States, in terms of its annual report called as the Section 301 Priority Watch List, and India has been in the Priority Watch List even in 2014. However, we have not been declared as a priority foreign country. If you are declared as a priority foreign country, US has within the law mechanisms to take unilateral action. The consistency of such action at the WTO is questionable, because prior to this, because the European Commission, European communities had challenged this law in the late 1990s, stating that this particular law and unilateral action involving the US section 301 to section 310 are in violation of article 23 of the dispute settlement mechanism. However, the WTO has come to a conclusion that they may prima facie not violate the WTO requirements. However, if US has to pursue its interest and take unilateral action against WTO member countries, then it may definitely violate the WTO agreement. India has used various flexibilities in the TRIPS agreement, primarily involving two of them. One, in terms of determining what subject matter can be excluded from patent protection in the case of pharmaceuticals, and also in terms of determining the grounds for compulsory licenses. And these two issues have been taken up for discussion because they are quite contemporary in nature. The section 3D of the Indian Patent Act, if you can look into the Patents Act of 1970, defines what inventions may not be patentable, and in section 3D, new forms of known substances or new uses may not be patentable if they do not lead to any significant demonstration of efficacy. Now, how this efficacy has to be defined, and whether this includes any kind of efficacy involving clinical efficacy like those relating to advantages of the product in terms of its administration on patients, or in terms of its easiness in relation to manufacturing, and therapeutic efficacy, which means that the invention, the pharmaceutical invention, has to cure the disease in a better way. Now, this came to be challenged in the Supreme Court in India in the Novartis case, Novartis versus Union of India, decided in 2013, and Supreme Court said that section 3D requires some kind of demonstration of therapeutic efficacy, which means that apart from the fact that the invention qualifies for novelty, inventive step and utility, in India pharmaceutical inventions also need to be shown that they are therapeutically efficacious. But this does not apply to all classes of pharmaceutical invention. This applies to only new forms of known substances and those kinds of exclusions which are mentioned in section 3D. This was quite controversial in the sense that article 27.1 of the TRIPS agreement says that you shall grant patents on any invention provided they involve novelty, inventive step and industrial application. Critics are of the view that this criteria of therapeutic efficacy adds on as a fourth criteria, which is hitherto not mentioned in the article 27.1 of the TRIPS agreement. TRIPS consistency of India's pharmaceutical compulsory licenses has also been questioned in the US report, in the USTR report, as much as section 3D has been questioned. In Bio versus Union of India, the Intellectual Property Appellate Board and also subsequently the High Court in 2014, Bombay High Court, has upheld a compulsory license granted by the Patent Controller General of India, wherein one of the grounds for grant of compulsory license was based on the ground of non-local working, as in non-manufacturing the patented product in India. We will discuss a bit in detail about section 3D. Section 3D was introduced by the Indian Parliament primarily to avoid evergreening, in the sense that a phenomena which has classically not been defined in a patent law, but in generally in innovation art it would be defined in terms of patent thickets around one singular patent, which delays the entry of generic medicines. However, evergreening is not purely an Indian concern. This concern is throughout the pharmaceutical industry, primarily due to decline in productivity. The EU Pharmaceutical Sector Inquiry Report actually confirms this kind of evergreening, wherein they mention that individual medicines are protected by nearly up to 1000 patents, product specific patent families, which can lead up to 1300 patents or pending patent applications across the member states. So it means there are very high rate of number of secondary patents that are filed in relation to a new chemical entity. There is also some evidence to the fact that evergreening creates certain high entry barriers for generic drugs. So the question is whether such concerns should be resolved through competition law or patent law. India has taken the route of patent law, by virtue of which a preventive mechanism like section 3D has been introduced to prevent evergreening. So as mentioned in 2003, Supreme Court defined that although Novartis invention may be efficacious in the sense that it had beneficial flow properties, better heat stability or lower hygroscopicity, it did not simply matter, because ultimately Novartis were not able to show that due to these factors the enhanced bioavailability, which Novartis was claiming as 30% in relation to its invention, was not actually leading to improvement in the therapeutic conditions of the disease. So that particularly meant that unless you show therapeutic efficacy, you cannot grant a patent on certain pharmaceutical inventions. It is controversial in the sense that this adds to the existing criteria of inventive step, novelty and utility, while may also be subsumed in these three criteria, and also in relation to its how we define the term invention. But nothing seems to be clear at the moment whether this would actually fall foul of article 27.1 of the TRIPS agreement. Finally, India's first compulsory license was granted on various grounds: that the price was not reasonable. Bayer was selling the drug Nexavar, which is an oncology drug, at the rate of $5,500 per patient per month, and that Bayer was, because of this price, was able to cater only 2% of the Indian patient population, and also that Bayer did not actually locally manufacture the drug, nor did it license the drug in India for local production. If you look into records, Bayer was actually importing the drug for the last few years, and since it was purely importing the drug and not taking any measures towards locally manufacturing, a compulsory license was granted on all three grounds. Primarily that the price was extremely high, that the reasonable requirements of the public in relation to the invention were not met, because only 2% of the patient population was being provided with the drug, and that the drug was not locally manufactured. The decision has been of the controller has been upheld by the IPAB and the High Court. IPAB modified some parts of the order, which included, among other things, inter alia, interpretation of the provision on local working, wherein the IPAB specifically said that one of the ways in which local manufacturing may not be complied is by exclusively importing the product. But if reasonable steps can be taken, and if the patent holder shows that he had actually taken reasonable measures to manufacture the product, then such kind of consideration can be taken, and the patent may thus not be compulsory licensed on this particular ground. In summary, the unique nature of the pharmaceutical industry and its relationship with IP protection and the role of IP protection must be considered for arriving at optimal IP law and policy in the context of pharmaceuticals. This also involves effects of patents on price based competition and price discrimination, as to how much can developing and least developed countries pay for pharmaceutical innovation and access. Thirdly, the innovation landscape is changing, primarily because we are shifting from new chemical entities to new biodrugs and also some kind of nano drugs. So hence innovation landscape is changing, the chemical entities are on decline. TRIPS provisions on pharmaceutical patents were primarily a sort of due to the lobbying efforts of the pharmaceutical companies during the Uruguay round, and that explains the use of private power in public law. TRIPS agreement and TRIPS plus agreements are on the rise, primarily by way of free trade agreements and also by virtue of bilateral investment treaties that are signed by WTO member countries. New plurilateral agreements like ACTA, the anti-counterfeiting trade agreements, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership agreements and IP chapters relating to them specifically go TRIPS plus. TRIPS is Paris plus, in the sense that the Paris Convention was insufficient in actually setting the right standards for international patent protection. However, TRIPS establishes certain minimum standards. It is not a maximum standards agreement. Hence, Article 1.1 of the TRIPS agreement allows WTO member countries to go TRIPS plus. TRIPS achieved certain key results by linking the provisions with the dispute settlement. Since the TRIPS agreement has been linked to the dispute settlement, WTO member countries are required to implement the law, and any flaw in implementation of the WTO TRIPS agreement can be litigated at the WTO dispute settlement mechanism, which also further involves certain kind of sanctions that may be imposed by virtue of the law not being compliant with the WTO requirements. The TRIPS agreement specifically requires that product patents must be provided, and very few exclusions have been allowed in case of pharmaceuticals. If you look into the negotiating documents, it clearly states that one of the concerns was that some countries like India and other developing countries were not offering product patents for pharmaceuticals and agrochemicals. So this was specifically negotiated, and hence TRIPS agreement says that you shall not make any discrimination whether in terms of products or processes, place of invention, whether the product is locally imported or whether the product is imported or locally worked, or also discrimination in terms of field of technology. Limited exceptions and compulsory license are allowed by the TRIPS agreement. This is a major flexibility that developing countries have negotiated, and hence it is important that while considering implementation part, especially in relation to India, we need to understand that TRIPS agreement allows you certain great freedoms, and India has taken a great clue in implementing those freedoms and flexibilities. Special and differential treatment for least developed countries is also provided through continuing transition period. So the transition period right now for LDCs for implementing the TRIPS agreement is 2021, provided that they comply with national treatment and most favored nation treatment. And also these countries would not be required to implement the patent pharmaceutical provisions in the TRIPS agreement till 2021. Export licenses to resolve public health issues are specifically allowed by virtue of the Doha Declaration on Public Health. Subsequently, the August 2003 decision clarifies the actual mechanism through which these particular type of export licenses may be granted by any WTO member countries to those countries where the pharmaceutical manufacturing capacity is either limited or insufficient. The Indian context is unique in terms of the fact that India has tried to utilize the flexibilities in the TRIPS agreement by way of taking preventive measures like section 3D, and also by way of allowing compulsory licenses on various grounds, including the ground of non-local working, as in non-local manufacturing. So with all of this, we can come to a conclusion that TRIPS agreement is a document that tries and balances the rights of the patent holders vis-a-vis the rights and obligations of the patent holder vis-a-vis the user's interest. At the same time, TRIPS in relation to patents requires WTO member countries to specifically implement the product patent provisions in relation to pharmaceuticals and also other inventions, and also defines rights, requirements relating to disclosure, requirements relating to the term of protection, requirements relating to limited exceptions, and also requirements relating to use without authorization involving compulsory licenses. Thus, we may conclude by saying that TRIPS is both a kind of a document that relates to the protection of IP right holders. At the same time, it has taken certain care in balancing its interest with public interest aspects of public health and access to medicines. I hope you have understood this particular module from both a conceptual and policy perspective, and the legal dynamics involving both the international protection relating to pharmaceutical patents and its implementation by taking a specific country example like India. Thank you very much.